good to see you back
Thank
in
you.
the saddle again.
Yeah. You doing, Michael?
It's a good day. I heard Jason's on permanently.
Yeah, it's awesome.
We do.
Oh, is he the new director?
Hi, he's gone beyond acting now. He's actually doing it. He's not acting anymore.
Okay, good. That means we cut his pay in half or something.
No, he didn't get an Oscar. Did you say that? But he must have been a best actor because they brought him on.
Chair in the last meeting.
These
Oh,
guys
yeah.
don't want Bumblebee
It
to go.
says same,
These
not
guys don't
over.
want Bumblebee to go.
If you just write same in the space.
Oh, I just wanted to okay to read it. Am I supposed to really read all that?
Working on the premise you read.
Barely.
Yeah.
All these good same things are pointing out to me. I think the next meeting is gonna be a little smoother. This is when all this stuff is gonna come up for
I don't think all of it's gonna come up.
2 out of the 3, I think.
Okay, well, that's fine.
He's filling and pass on.
I mean, I've got some questions, but it's probably,
Which one are you, Jason? Which one are you?
On the minutes from the last
no,
meeting.
no, like on this one.
Is it, oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's like, they did one, check it out.
Dang it, I left my pen in the truck too.
Well,
Do you have an extra one, Tom?
They said,
There was so many
they
trips.
said APM trips and PM trips, but they didn't say if there were any improvements. Hopefully still.
Oh, maybe not. That may be something that.
Yeah, that was the question.
Yeah, but they did do it.
Trying to push us.
Yeah, they said, here's the peak PM, here's the peak AM.
So that may come
Oops.
up,
Yeah.
that may come up in the next meeting, or we can find out tonight if there's
Thought I had to
because I
say.
think that latest is a preliminary.
You want your nameplate to stay the same?
We can talk.
Somebody asked me why we didn't
I
have.
didn't know.
charts that were more like that.
I didn't.
Do you park in your
You didn't see the little rail anyway.
basic, that's what they call it, two parking spaces. Right,
No, we're not
I think
zoning
that's
that's
this
gonna be,
anything today, right?
it's gonna be
Just
dicey.
minutes.
Just minutes.
As far as I know. Yeah, that's it, just those minutes. The rest of it's all discussion.
Because they don't know if
Yeah.
street parking.
Right.
And so,
It'll be interesting to see how this goes.
if I have these parking,
One of these will really,
and this is,
That kind of
yeah, I think too. I think it's good to have it, look at that ahead of time.
Could be a little different.
and
We haven't had
this
a meeting
gets
since
pretty,
October.
needs to be pushed over, it's not in the
Didn't
section.
we have one in November?
Because if you get a regular card there,
And then we have it.
Oh, okay, okay.
yeah.
I think that's minor
I'm
things that they can,
reading the wrong one. I'm looking at the other one. The other,
that's the kind of stuff we need to point out.
Right, that was in here.
What's that?
Like you were saying, what is the stuff you need to point out?
He's gonna bring up some.
What do you think of the parking on that?
He's just talking.
That's my comment. And what do you use your garage for? Do you park in the garage? See,
I have two garages, so, but one's my rec room.
yeah, well, you see, I have a 3-car garage and I have 2 cars and I have PT Cruisers. And this garage, literally, I could park 6 PT Cruisers and still have space.
Okay.
So, you know, it's a large garage.
Right.
The Boulders in Prescott, they had
Okay, we're
one
getting-
designated parking and then the garage. And they had all over.
Like to call to order the March 6, 2018 regular meeting of the Chino Valley Planning and Zoning Commission. Mr. Pasiak, would you lead us in the pledge?
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'd like to have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Armstrong,
Here.
Commissioner Welker,
here.
Commissioner Bacon,
Here?
Commissioner Baker, Vice Chair Pasiak,
Here.
and Chair Merritt.
Here. Okay, moving to item 4A, consideration of possible action to approve November 7th, 2017 regular meeting minutes. Has everybody had a chance to take a look at those? And there was in the last meeting a reason why it was pushed to this date. Do we have a reason for that?
Wasn't ready for review.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
No, I believe there was a correction to the minutes that Jamie was gonna take care of, and then she would make the corrections, and then it would come before us tonight.
Okay, the corrections were for the RV park designation. I think that was brought up in your guys' last meeting. Let's see here. Yes, it's item 5A, report on corrections made to the October 13th minutes about the RV spaces. Is that what you're referring to?
I believe so.
Okay, so that has been corrected according to the staff report. So on the November 7th minutes, does anybody have any questions or corrections? I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve.
Have a second?
Second.
I'm sorry,
Have a-
who's second?
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Item 4B, consideration of possible action to approve December 5th, 2017 regular minutes. I was not present at that meeting, so I will not be voting and will not offer any comments.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to approve the minutes.
Okay,
for
we
the
have a
December
motion to
5th,
approve.
2017.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's carried. I abstain. Okey-doke. Item 5, staff reports.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. As we discussed, I think in the last meeting or the meeting before, we're going to give you a bit more update on activities occurring in development services, particularly related to land use matters. We've experienced a significant uptick in applications in the last month and a half. We have approximately 9 active zoning cases in the queue, so you will start seeing a lot more on your agenda. Furthermore, we are well underway with the UDO rewrite, the zoning code rewrite. I have, in the last, I would say, 8 to 12 weeks, restructured our entire code into a new format that we find more user-friendly. And we'll be meeting in 3 weeks with the UDO subcommittee to talk about how we define our constituent groups for various sections of the code. So, for example, we would bring home builders together to review the residential development standards, any potential new residential zoning districts. The sign code, we would review with sign companies. I know we just did the sign code, but we found that we need to do more work on it. So
That's a very complicated project.
it is, and you know, we found several items that need to be addressed. In fact, we have one coming before you probably next month. So for a CUP for electronic signs. Let's see, other activities. That's for the most part it. You will see 3-4 items on your next few agendas. So we do have a special meeting coming up on the 20th. Thank you for accommodating us. We have a project of what we feel is importance to the town. It's affordable housing for seniors that needs to be accommodated for tax credit incentive financing, and their applications due for that on April 2nd. And so they have to have their entitlements in place by then. So in order to do that, we had to do a special meeting on the 20th and then council on the 27th. So we appreciate you coming back to see us again this month. So and that's it.
Thank you, Jason. Okay, we're going to open up the public hearing portion of the minute of this meeting. There isn't really anything on the agenda for that. So we'll give the public a chance to speak if anybody has anything to say. We'll close that portion of the meeting. Do we have any non-public hearing action items?
Yes, thank you, Chair and Commissioners. We have 3 items tonight that are on for what we call study session. The study session, and I'll just say it kind of once for all 3 items so I don't repeat myself like the report does. But the study session is intended to give all of you a chance to review projects of significance that staff finds significant, whether due to their size and scope or if their particular interest or uniqueness. And then you'll have an additional month, maybe even 2 months, to really digest the project and think about your thoughts, your ideas, whether you will support it or not. But tonight is really for informational purposes. Staff will present. I can discuss and answer questions with you. We typically don't have the applicant do a presentation because we don't want to venture into what would be kind of a public hearing. We didn't send out the notices to residents within 300 feet, those sorts of things. It's really a discussion purposes between staff and you. If I don't know an answer, I can actually ask the applicant to come up and answer it for me, but we won't get into a deliberation or make any motions to consider like approval or denial.
I have a question. One of the commissioners brought up a question concerning some changes that were made after we sent something on to town council for approval. Can we talk to you a little bit about that now or not?
I believe it would have to be an agenda. Is it a project that was approved by council with changes?
I don't know the answer
All
to
right,
that.
we send it to council with our recommendations and stuff, and then when you presented it to council, there was a couple of items that had been changed, and you pointed those out. We're just kind of wondering what the procedure is on that.
If the changes are of large significance, the council can refer it back to the P and Z. I itemize what those changes are. They can consider that and still take a motion on it. If they didn't feel comfortable with that and they wanted your recommendation on the revised project, they would refer it back
Okay, thank
without
you.
action.
So the way I hear that is it's a judgment call on the council.
It can be. We will specifically itemize what the changes are. There are going to be small things that can occur in that time frame of a month. We might find an error or we might find something else.
But you always bring that out as part of the,
Yes, we have a
presentation.
responsibility to convey any changes between your recommendation and council's consideration so that it doesn't slip under the rug.
did that
That's
get you?
great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jason. Okay, so we'll move on to item 8, which is discussion items. Item 8A, Perkinsville Road 40. Located at the northeast corner of East Perkinsville Road and North Road 1 East intersection is a 44.3 acre project that is scheduled to go before the Planning and Zoning Commission on April 3rd, 2018. The applicant is proposing to rezone a property from AR5, which is agricultural residential 5 acre minimums, to SR-0.6 PAD, which is a single-family residential 7,000 square foot minimum with a planned area development overlay.
Thank you, Chair. We have prepared PowerPoints for each of the 3 items on the agenda tonight for discussion. And this project, known as Perkinsville 40, is located just on the other side of the road of Perkinsville Road from the community center. And it's just 1 mile east of the 89. You can see it located right here on the next slide. Oh, I'm gonna have to use the, there we go. There's the subject property there. It's primarily vacant. There's just a couple structures on it. The initial intent of development of this property had been to be, I believe, a medical marijuana cultivation facility of some sort. I don't have the details on it now, but those plans have since changed, and the property owner would like to get the land entitled for single-family residential development of about approximately 7,000 square foot lots, and as you stated, 159 of them. We have a development plan to show you. We have the parcel number up there. The address is 1204 East Perkinsville Road. Right now, it's about 44.3 acres, and it's zoned AR5. The general plan designation on the site is medium-density residential, and the existing land use is just a single-family residences and some accessory structures. So they're requesting 7,000 square foot lots with a planned area development overlay with a couple deviations from base code standards. That would be, the PAD would allow them the ability to deviate that as long as they could justify those deviations. Generally speaking, to accommodate current market conditions and to provide more exceptional open space, landscaping, those sorts of things to beautify the project. So at 159 units, you're looking at a proposed density of about 3.6 dwelling units per acre. So the project would more or less mimic something similar to a Bright Star that size of lots, around 7,000 square feet. And the development standards proposed for this project are consistent with the development standards that are out there at Bright Star. So it's not out of the box in terms of what you see occurring in existing development today. This is it says conceptual site plan, otherwise known as the development plan for the PAD. It shows you the project located north of the community center at the northeast corner of Road 1 East and Perkinsville Road. You'll see large landscape tracts off of Road 1 East. That's primarily to accommodate retention and drainage. Further, I worked with the applicant as well as Alex to provide some centralized open space for the project. Whenever you get to smaller lot design rather than larger lots like 1 acres or larger, we like to see common area open space because really you see a land transfer between someone's private lot, and then instead you go to a smaller lot and take some land and put it in the middle so there can be some recreational facilities. And so they've done that through the use of an open space corridor through like a spine through the project. So someone could pass from that last row of lots on the north all the way south and then cross the road to the community center and open space rather than trying to curve their way around all of those streets. So with the PAD overlay, they have asked to modify some of the base development standards for the district. And honestly, many of you know the UDO development standards are interesting. And so what they're really trying to do is craft market sensitive and common development standards for a project of lots this size. I've worked on, I probably know less than 3 dozen similar projects throughout the valley and now up here. And the development standards that are now in the PAD, I've already worked with the applicant, are pretty common for this type of development. So you'll see in the chart here the proposed modifications. The code requirements are listed in the middle, and the proposed PAD standards are listed on the right. Where you see in bold with an asterisk is the deviation from existing base code. Because these lots are not fronting Perkinsville Road, rather they're flipped and they back to it with a landscape tract, the 25-foot setback reduction is appropriate in this location, we believe, so far. Whereas if you fronted it, a 50-foot setback would be required. Plus, they would be required to do a significant right-of-way dedication for the full width of Perkinsville Road. It's not currently fully dedicated. The other setbacks are listed down below. A 20-foot required setback off Road 3 North, which we're not quite certain would even be improved yet, but we will ask for the dedication. I've been working with Frank Marbury to ensure all the dedications are appropriate based on what the town's needs are for the future. And then the front yard setbacks down below, with relatively small lots, the 25-foot front yard setback can be somewhat onerous. With today's architecture and typical building standards, we see a lot of the 15-foot to livable, 20-foot to garage. So you always ensure you've got at least a 20-foot long driveway to accommodate most vehicles. Further, with the typical street section of 50 feet, you generally have 5 to 8 feet of right-of-way that still separates you from the curb. So your driveway usually ends up being about 25 to 27 feet long anyways with a 20-foot setback. And then when you do livable, we try not to penalize enhanced architecture where we don't have that garage forward design. You have like the more attractive portion of the home, the livable portion of the home, or a front porch. We usually kind of give them the little bonus, or we could support the bonus by bringing that more attractive feature of the home forward towards the street. These are the additional other standards. One thing to note, they initially did come in and ask for 5 and 5 setbacks on the sides, which we felt was a bit much. A little tight. They compromised and did 5 and 10 for a total of 15, so it still gives some room to breathe between the homes. It can provide some variation when you have staggered setbacks. It's not always 15 and 15. It could be 10 and then 20, and then so it could provide some movement in the neighborhood. As well, for the minimum street yard setback, a 10-foot street yard side setback is pretty common. 2 stories, 30 feet is the request so that you can accommodate typical 1 or 2 story homes with a pitched roof. And then the accessory building setbacks, 5 and 5 in the rear, would be sufficient to accommodate building code restrictions in terms of at least 10 feet of building separation. Should one neighbor have a shed and another neighbor have a shed, they'll still be 10 feet apart. And maximum lot coverage at 55%. 50% is typical, 55% is not atypical. That's something you can consider if you feel like it's too much lot coverage. But for most builders, when you do the largest single-story home, it's got a relatively large footprint. And 55% would give them a little wiggle room to have a large 1-story on a 7,000 square foot lot.
And that still keeps within all of the setbacks.
Certainly, what
That
the,
55% would maintain the new modified setback.
usually if you were to factor in all of your, like, when you call it your building envelope, if you were to kind of parcel out what your building envelope was, you write in where all your setbacks are, that square footage area is usually larger than the 55% lot coverage. The 55% just keeps the lot from looking overbuilt.
Right.
Jason, I have a question.
Sure.
For the study sessions, can we have this type of details in the staff report?
Absolutely.
Okay, that you just presented?
Yes, what we'll do is, in your staff report, because it is a planned area development and there are requested deviations, we'll provide a development standards chart, like a combo side by side, so you can see them all. As well, in the actual ordinance, we will include those in there, so it's codified by adoption of the ordinance. So, coming back to the concept of the overlay justification, okay, they've asked for these deviations rather than just do straight zoning. The exchange is, can we provide meaningful additional open space, amenities, and landscape tracks over and above what would be required just to accommodate retention? So we get the opportunity in turn to say we want to see nicer park spaces, which they've provided, nicer landscaping tracks for above and beyond what would normally be required. And in our opinion, so far, this just being a study session for discussion, we believe that they've accommodated that. We've gone like 3 rounds before it came to you guys, so it's been under review for a bit. This is the conceptual landscape plan that we had them submit, so it better illustrates the park space in the middle and how they would, landscape the tracks within the project. Once we get into the preliminary plat phase, we would ask for a more detailed landscape plan, but they're not platting the property right now. They're still at conceptual zoning level. So in the future, a preliminary plat with a more enhanced landscape plan would come back before you for review and approval.
This will be ready by the next meeting or if we decide to move forward with the overlay.
What would happen would be if you move forward as proposed, it would be presented to you for action in April. I think it's April 3rd. And then if council adopts it by ordinance, either the current owner or if they choose to sell it to a developer, wish to plat the property at that time, the preliminary plat and landscaping plan would have to conform with this conceptual design. So we would refer to that in that future report and confirm whether it does or does not conform with the development plan that's in front of you. But we will be including the conceptual landscape plan as part of the PAD exhibit, so they'll be tied to this concept.
Okay, thank you.
Could we go back to that
Yep.
slide?
Sure.
Where are the detention basins on this project?
Right now, there may be some that can be afforded in the middle. They're really kind of rectilinear, so they're not that efficient. The chunkier spaces, if you will be in the southwest corner of the site.
So those 3 open spaces will be detention basins?
Yes.
Okay.
And I did ask through this project, instead of doing a full-blown grading and drainage report, I did ask them to have their engineer prepare a grading and drainage statement.
Mhm.
So I didn't want them to just design the project, and not consider what could happen once they actually, plan in drainage. And I didn't want it to change the conceptual plan at the plat. So I said, make sure that your retention volumes, your basin sizing, and location are where they need to be, so that when we get to the plat, we just wiggle a little bit if we have to. I don't want to redesign this thing. Otherwise, you have to amend the zoning.
Sure. I have another question. I think at this study session, I would just like to mention to the commission, they're giving a lot of detail to what they would like in terms of development standards,
Yes.
but they're not proposing any type of thing as to what recreational amenities they would like to provide. I don't think that should wait until the actual voting session.
Okay.
They've given everything they would like to have, reduced setbacks, here's everything, but just to say park doesn't mean a whole lot.
Okay.
And then we come to the voting session, then we're going back and forth all the time. So if they're going to put so much effort into their development plan, they have to also put some effort into what amenities they are going to provide.
Commissioner Bacon, certainly, what I'll have them do is provide an itemized list of amenities as part of the PAD document, and we can bring that back. So you'll know exactly what would occur there. If you'd like us to, we can have them provide an enhanced vignette of the centralized open space. We can have that done as well if you'd like that as part of the
That
review.
would be needed, yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Bacon brings up a good point there. It always seems to be a bone of contention at the time of the move, when we make action on it, that we're trying to figure out, what we've given them this stuff and now what are they giving us? And I think he brings a good point up here that in the future, when we do these study sessions, if they included that in there, that would make the job easier when we got time to do action on it, because that seems to bog us down quite a bit
Sure.
in the action item.
And Chair, that's certainly understood. We oftentimes have a companion preliminary plat application that comes with these rezoning cases. And so we end up with a lot more information at that time. But I will take note of that, that even for the rezonings alone, we'll get that detail so you see that.
It's just helpful for us,
Yeah.
gives us a second look at it.
Absolutely.
Jason, along with amenities, is there gonna be some kind of a fencing design or something that's gonna come with what they're gonna do?
Certainly, with their conceptual landscape plan, if you would like as part of the PED, we can bring a wall elevations plan.
Please.
It'd be a wall plan that would show you where solid walls would be, theme walls would be, or perhaps just builder walls. Oftentimes between like uses, you just have the builder wall, but anything fronting open space or the major streets would have a decorative theme wall with, perhaps stone or stucco or things like that.
It's just helpful so
Sure.
that we don't get inundated at the time of the action.
Certainly, we'll have a wall plan prepared. I'll ask the applicant. They're here in the audience.
2 more questions. Are they going to provide any type of privacy wall next to the nursery?
They will. My understanding is it would be a 6-foot residential wall there.
Okay.
It would probably be a theme wall in the taper in the southeast corner, since it's still visible to the road. Wraps the wall, and it'll probably transition into a builder wall, which is kind of like a dually wall.
And there's 10 foot of open space apparently along Road 3 North. Is that going to be taken for any expansion of the roadway?
There's a dedication and then the 10-foot buffer. Frank is looking at the long-term improvement plans because it doesn't really go anywhere. It goes to Road 1 East, but then there's nothing that's been planned or platted that would accommodate it yet.
Mhm.
So I'm not certain if it would end in a turnaround at some point or how we would utilize that right away. But we would landscape the portion that's dedicated to being a landscape tract outside of the dedicated right-of-way.
So would that 10% also be included in the open space calculations for that 10 foot?
We would, anything that's designated as open space tracts would be included in the overall open space percentage. If you'd like us to itemize out what's kind of active and passive open space, I could ask them to do that so you can see what's usable and what's just for landscape buffers.
So if I may clarify it in my own mind, I'm a little slow at this. So that 10 foot would be taken by the city if they should expand the right-of-way there on the north side. They would be allowed to take that for expansion of East Road 3 North.
I believe the 10-foot landscaping would be outside of the right-of-way dedication. That's to ensure that we'd always have landscaping there.
So, okay, and the purpose for that landscaping is to just provide a buffer?
Right, we wouldn't want, if that road were to be taken and improved at some point, we wouldn't want the road to go right up to the wall.
Okay.
We'd want the softness of the 10 feet of landscaping, but I think they're not proposing to offer more than that since we're not even certain quite yet. And this could actually work itself out in the next 4 weeks, depending on what Frank wants to do with the right-of-way.
Okay.
If we even need it, we might just absorb it and make it all landscaping or something like that. If that makes sense. We're still vetting the right-of-way issues for this project. I didn't mention it, but I should. The project does have water and sewer in Perkinsville. You may have seen that in the report already.
It was in the report.
Right, just making sure. So it's already has service and capacity there. We had statements for wastewater and water prepared as well by their engineer to confirm that there's capacity. You may also know that we have an initiative from a land use perspective to develop some more what we would call workforce housing, smaller housing. I wouldn't say necessarily affordable since it's brand new housing, but the Old Home Manor project, where our workforce may be in the future, is just located to the east and north of this project.
Right across the street from the park. Couldn't hardly get any better.
Yeah.
One more question that just occurred to me. Would they be proposing sidewalks along Perkinsville Road as well?
We would be requiring sidewalks and also within the interior of the development, since they're smaller lots. We oftentimes we have a softer road section, which is more rural section for acre lots and larger.
The traffic study, what's the scoop on that?
The traffic study, we did ask them for a statement, which they prepared for Frank's review. And ultimately, it's under review now, and it would determine whether we would need a left turn lane in the middle of Perkinsville across from the park. So if you're coming eastbound on Road 1 North from the 89, if we would want to create more or less 3 lanes, 2 travel lanes and 1 left turn lane to go on the project, so you're not constantly stopping traffic to turn in on Perkinsville, which is a pretty significant road. The pre-plat will actually determine whether or not we need a left turn lane. When we get into those details, at the zoning level, we would just determine the right-of-way dedication significant enough to accommodate that if Frank
And then
believes
the
we do.
traffic study follows after that.
Yes, the traffic study will support what improvements would be needed.
I just saw another question that I may have, Jason. So as we're looking at the right-of-way along 3 North, is that the reason why they're not providing another entrance to the subdivision from the north?
That's a good question, Commissioner Bacon. I think they just felt that the 2 entrances were necessary. I also think that since we don't know if the other 3 North would be improved ever,
Mm-hmm.
they'd have to go off-site because of the out parcel that's zoned AR5 right there. My understanding is that 2 is sufficient for the number of lots.
Okay.
I'll discuss with Frank in more detail if he thinks there's any reason that we would need to see improvements up there.
One question, on the, if off-site improvements are required, would that be the responsibility of the developer?
Yes, Commissioner Prestick, the developer's required to do their half-street improvements. So they'd be on the north side of Perkinsville Road, east side of Road 1 East, and if necessary, Road 3 North.
But you've left room to do that on 3 North because it may not go through at any point.
Right, we have the dedication language in place for it.
My
But they are required to do their half-street per the standards that Frank will set.
My concern is that if they need the left turn lane that you mentioned earlier, would they be required to develop that, or would that be between the developer and the town?
If they need the left turn lane, they would be required to install it at the time of construction.
Thank
If
you.
for some reason Frank believes that we need to have a longer-term plan for Perkinsville improvements, we could do money in escrow in lieu of improvements, where we'd bank it until the time of construction of a larger scale project, so we don't have a lot of scallop streets.
Anybody have any further questions on this one? Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Chair. We'll bring that information back to you as requested for the hearing.
Okay. Okay, are we ready to move forward to the next item, which is 8B? JC Estates, located approximately 0.25 miles north of the northwest corner of North Road 1 West and West Road 4 North intersection. It is in preparation to present to the Planning and Zoning Commission at a future date. The project consists of 3 separate parcels. Assessor's parcel number 306-05-030R as in Robert. Parcel number 306-05-031V as in Victory, and parcel number 306-05-031T as in Thomas, and a combined makeup of a 75-acre site. The applicant is requesting to rezone 6.4 acres of parcel 306-05-031V to SR1, which is single-family residential 1 acre minimum, and the remaining 12.5 acres to CL, commercial light. The applicant has also requested to rezone parcel number 306-05-030R and 306-05-031T from AR5 agricultural 5 acre minimum to SR1 single family residential 1 acre minimum. Altogether, this project will consist of the residential portion of the project to make up 52 proposed 1 acre single family residential lots with the existing windmill house.
Thank you. Long statement there. Thank you, Chairman. Yes, this project is somewhat complex in that there really are 3 separate projects all included in the application. You have I'll bring up the site. The subject property there, you see the kind of the large chunky rectangular piece at the top is really serving as kind of a 40 lot, 1 acre lot subdivision. Then you have the windmill house flanked by a handful of lots to the west, and then the lots scattered kind of along Road 4 North. So those are the primary 3 components of the project. Now, you imagine some of you or all of you know the Cordovanas. They own the windmill house and the property, and they're back. And they've had development plans in the past, but those have since changed. That's why this application is in front of us now. So this shows the parcels more clearly with the aerial underlay. You can see them there. The top 40 acres is more or less vacant. The property to the west is vacant. The windmill house is built out. And then there's some vacant property to the south of that had originally intended to be a multifamily project. I'll show you the site plan for that, but that's why you have the CLMR zoning on this site. So now with them going to the 1 acre concept, the multifamily concept is out the door. And I've asked them to kind of clean up the zoning on the windmill house. If they don't need the multifamily zoning, let's just rezone it to commercial light,
Yep.
take that out and clean it up and keep it, pretty straightforward. They are not requesting a planned area development at this time. If something were to change in the review process, we'd certainly bring it to your attention if for whatever reason, we would need that. Back in 2015, they received their approval for approximately 6.55 acres, which is that parcel number that's listed there, with the planned area development overlay, and approximately 9.7 acres of CLPAD. Again, that's the site plan there. It shows the event facilities and the lake. You can't see, the lake's there from the aerial. And then to the south, they had kind of a cul-de-sac design with some multifamily units or condos. They've determined that the condo portion of the project is no longer viable or what they'd like to do, and they just want to go with large acre properties to kind of buffer the windmill house from adjacent development. So the total lots are about 52, the 40 on the top and around 12 on the bottom half of the project. And you can see it right there. So if you look, sorry for the orientation flipping, so north is now to your right. You see what's more or less a square, simple subdivision on the right side, but it does have street access connecting to the south, so you can pass through the property, and it accesses those lots to the south, the bottom half of the project. Then you'll have 1 acres fronting Road 4 North. Site infrastructure will consist of water provision by Appaloosa Water Company, which they own, with water in an 8-inch line that runs along Road 4 North, and then it would extend up through the site, providing water service to all of the lots rather than doing wells. However, because sewer is approximately 4 miles away, the cost prohibitive to run sewer over here, especially for kind of a low-density project, they are proposing to do individual septic tanks. I'm just going to refer back to this. This is the development plan with the aerial underneath it. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I have one question on this. In the lots up against Road 4 North, there's a cul-de-sac there, and if I'm looking at this right, that looks like a right-of-way of some portion to access onto the commercial light property. Is that correct?
Looking at the driveway, so apologies. If they have an existing drive that kind of goes up towards, I should say that's actually west. I almost have to turn my head to look at it. Their existing drive would access that, and then they have an independent cul-de-sac for that cluster of lots that says SR1 or B right there. So they would have to build, I don't know if this laser's working. Let me see if it's on. Oh, it's not working. So in the top right, top left corner where it says SR1, those would be the cluster of lots that would be accessed off a mini cul-de-sac. I think they're trying to keep the Windmill House Drive independent. If you've pulled in there before, it almost looks like you could go like multiple directions. I think they're kind of cleaning up the access with this project.
Okay, so I guess the question I have is there's a strip. If you see the labeling SR-1 where the number 1 is at, there's a 30-foot wide, is that a dedicated easement of some sort?
I would have to,
It's a drainage from the street, so the drainage can go into the lake.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a drainage easement.
and that's,
Okay,
that's
drainage.
Tony
Oh, it's a
Cordovana for the
okay,
record.
That makes sense.
It's a drainage easement for the street.
Thank you.
Just like to make a comment. I think the neighbors are happy to see going to 1 acre lots because there is controversy with the MR.
Commissioner
zoning
Bacon, we have
in
a
the
very
past.
large file on the last project with a number of protests in it.
I do have a question on the CL zoning, and I'm trying to remember, this was not approved as a CL pad at the other meeting that we had that approved the MRPAD zoning. But could you go into the general plan a little bit and discuss that?
Certainly, Chair and Commissioner Bacon. A couple of years ago, when this rezoning case was filed, I don't find any record that a minor general plan amendment had been requested. So technically, the commercial zoning and commercial use of the property would not conform with the medium density residential designation of the property. I mean, it certainly is a unique project. It was supported and approved and has since developed and is successful. In my belief, whether we may wish to initiate this now, I've spoken with the applicant, is initiate a minor general plan amendment to clean up the map so that we can put this on the general plan map where it belongs, so it's consistent with the zoning case. Because it's already commercially zoned, zoning trumps the general plan land use theoretically because it's already in place and developed. I'm working with Phyllis now, and if we should just do it now and then notice everything all in one swoop. If that makes sense. If that's confusing to any of the commissioners, please let me know.
I think it's good because right now we have an opportunity for all of us to have a clean slate and move forward with something that looks really sharp here.
Thank you, Chair. It's been one of our major initiatives to get a much better hold and a tight hold on making sure our zoning cases are properly processed and that they're in conformance with the general plan.
Yep, I think this is a great step forward.
I do have another question, though. With the number of uses permitted in the CL zoning, if the windmill project should ever go away, this could open up the door for potentially incompatible uses with the, would you like to comment on that?
Certainly, Commissioner Bacon. And like I said, if at this time it's straight zoning, if you wish, through the planned area development overlay, per the UDO, we can restrict, let's say, non-desirable uses of the property if we feel it's not compatible with the SR1 zoning around it. And we could sit down with the applicant and include the PAD overlay. We have not gone to neighborhood meeting yet, so that option is still here. Otherwise, we'd have to have another neighborhood meeting and represent to the neighbors.
Just as a comment, because I sat in on when we redid basically the town plan, so as to speak, that there was discussion about creating some islands away from the highway with some commercial light property on them. And because this thing is existing, we would like to hear more about some of the things that could be in that commercial light zoning, but this may be a good opportunity to create one of those islands that was talked about when we redid the UDO.
Certainly, and I'll look at the general plan off the top of my head. I'm not recalling a provision for it, but it makes good sense to not just have highway commercial in the town.
It was not something that
Yeah.
was dedicated into it. It was just a lot of discussion around it because the discussion was off the subject a bit, but
Mhm.
the discussion was we have so much land out there that is residential that at some point it would be nice to put some places in where somebody could have a convenience store or whatever in that area, not particularly here, but out and off the highway and away from the other commercial areas that we have. And it was not, to my knowledge, brought forward as an action, but there was a lot of discussion about it.
I think with the future general plan update, which we're also considering, even though we've just adopted it, these items such as these, we should actually weave that type of language into the general plan. So when we have unique circumstances where it works, we have the support in the document to justify the rezoning case and the general plan amendment. So we'll take that
Well, I-
noted.
Again, just to reiterate, I see this as a great opportunity for everybody that's involved.
Thank you, Chair.
This has 52 lots on it. Is there going to be a traffic impact study or analysis?
Commissioner Frank and I have discussed it. We'll probably need a statement, and that the right-of-way improvements to 4 North are under review right now, and so we'll be working with the applicant on that. In fact, they were corresponding as late as today, so we will alert you at the next meeting.
And they have been forthcoming with the right-of-ways in the past.
Okay. There's 52 lots, and I think lot 51 and 52 is going to be interesting for their driveways, but that's just my opinion. There's only one access. Is there going to be any consideration of a second dedicated access, or is that going to be required?
Actually, Commissioner, that's a good question. When we initially met with them, the north-south connector road that you see in the plan that connects, between lots 14 and 15, on the north, if you look at the exhibit up there and you go right in the middle where D is, that road actually is a secondary access point into the 40 lots to the north. You can hardly see it there, but it's there. So actually, the project will have 2 points of access.
Okay.
We told them at a feasibility meeting prior to submittal that did not exist. They had a cul-de-sac up there in the lower half, the middle portion of the project, leaving just one access point for all those lots on the north. And we said, you need emergency access.
Yeah. So it's gonna be an emergency access, it won't be a full?
No, these are both full access
they're
points
both
now.
full access? It'll
Mhm.
show up better at the next review?
We put the aerial under this, so it kind of lets you see a lot more. If it's just black line, you would see that roadway a little bit more clearly to see that second access point.
Just one general question. Is there a requirement locally as to the number of lots that are allowed on a cul-de-sac? I only ask that because when I worked in Maricopa County, there was a restriction on the number, and I was just wondering if we have something like that up here.
Off the top of my head, Commissioner, I believe, I don't remember based on lot size, if it's 25 or 40 would be the maximum. I think 25 would be the maximum without a secondary access point. But, I mean, so if you're saying if it only has one point of access, are we considering it kind of just a giant cul-de-sac? I've talked with Frank. I don't know that we have we've talked about the maximum extent or length of a cul-de-sac from a public safety perspective. You know, if you pull in an ambulance and you're going into a neighborhood and you find yourself a quarter mile in, you got to turn around, that's a problem. But I'll talk to Frank and see I can present that information at the next meeting.
Yeah, and you're correct. You're correct with that length because the Anthem development in Maricopa County, they actually had to build in a turnaround area for the fire trucks halfway through one of their longer roads.
Absolutely. I know when I was working with City of Mesa, I think we had a maximum of, I've been in places where it was 600 feet and I've been in places where it was a quarter mile depending on the jurisdiction.
I think I missed the point there. I thought you had the access to the north. What am I missing here?
I think the conversation came up because we discussed it, but you're correct. We do have the access to the
Okay,
north.
all right.
We more or less connect Road 4 North with the road along the north, 4.5. I can bring it, if you'd like, I can actually bring up the black line plan. We have it on the computer.
No, I can see it well.
Oh, you can,
I
okay.
just wasn't sure about the initial question.
In staff's perspective, from an initial review, the proposed project is less impactful on the surrounding community than what's already approved for the site in terms of low-density residential versus having condominiums and such.
I think the neighbors would agree with you. Anybody else have any questions on this one? Any comments? Okay, let's move forward to item 8C. Center Street duplex located 0.25 mile east of the southeast corner of West Center Street and South State Route 89 intersection. It is in preparation to present to the Planning and Zoning Commission at a future date. The applicant is proposing to rezone the property to MR-1, which is multifamily residential 1 acre minimum, to allow development for 9 duplex properties or 18 individual residences.
Thank you, Chair. Since this project is a multifamily in nature, we wanted to, although it's not as large as the other projects, it's, multifamily projects we like to bring to the commission at least once for study session. So that's why we're bringing it here today. Now, this parcel, if you see there highlighted, is located directly across the street from the high school property on the south side of the road, and it's kind of an L-shaped property, so it's got kind of an interesting design in which to fit a multifamily project. But since they are multifamily units, they're a bit more flexible than trying to do a lot designed for single-family residential. You can see the property more clearly here with the aerial. It's undeveloped with access to Center Street on the north side. There is not another access point for the project, but based on the number of units, and my understanding is it won't be required. And just to repeat what you said, it is a 9-unit project resulting in 18 individual residences, duplexes, of course, which results in a density of 6.3 units per acre. There was a question on whether the property conformed with the general plan. This is in that weird kind of transitional zone. Our general plan land use designation map is kind of almost a bubble diagram. It doesn't have exact parcel lines indicated on it. So this is right on the line between the commercial multifamily and the medium density residential. What we're doing now is we're having our GIS technician underlay the parcels, the entire parcel map of the town on our general plan map so we can confirm that it indeed fits. But again, the general plan was written kind of loosely or generally to facilitate development and not be a very precise map. So that question did come up, so I wanted to get in front of that in case you thought of that already. This is the development plan for the site. They are asking for just straight MR1 zoning. You can see they have a significant data table there on the left. I'm not sure if you can even read it in your reports, but we'll probably pull that off and do it on a separate sheet so it's more legible at 8.5 by 11 level. So you'll have the single access point off of Center come in. You'll have the duplex units on either side of the road. You'll have some centralized open space, which will also serve as retention. And then we have a turnaround located in the southwest corner of the project in kind of a T or a hammerhead. I should tell you, 2 spaces are provided for each unit in the form of a garage. They also have 2 additional spaces available in the driveway, so 4 spaces per unit. Initially, staff finds that acceptable. There wouldn't be any parking on the drive aisle because it's not wide enough to accommodate parking like a public street would be. It's a private drive. Again, it's a 24-foot wide private drive with a rolled curb and gutter, and the turnaround has been reviewed by fire and it meets their standards.
I have a question on the parking, because if you would, could you go back to that one slide you just had up? Because I read it real quick, and it says,
You mean this one?
one more. 2 in each garage and 2 in each driveway. So that's a total of 4 for the duplex, so it's like 2 per unit.
It's actually 4 per unit. So you'd have quite a bit of parking.
I'm wondering how you get 2 cars on 16 feet.
I thought they had a 2-car garage. Yeah, it says 2 driveway and 2 garage per unit.
Per unit.
So they have a total of 72 spaces, so
Okay,
18
so-
times 4 is 72.
Okay, I'm just thinking that 16 feet to get 2 vehicles on there is gonna be tight.
I agree. I do believe the standard driveway width is actually 16 feet. The space inside the garage is likely larger to accommodate the doors.
I realize that, but a lot of people don't use their garage for parking.
Oh, I see.
And would it be possible to see a cross-section of what they're proposing? I know it's a private road, but it'd be kinda nice to see what they're proposing as to the road, because it looks like it's sidewalk, curb, gutter, and roadway for 24 feet. I'm just trying to see how it all fits. And then the guest parking, I think, is gonna have to be shifted a little bit because part of it is in the site triangle.
I see we have, I apologize, I see, the 3 spaces for the guest parking, or do you mean, up at the top, I see that there.
Top left-hand.
Yeah, they have, appears to be a total of 6 guest parking spaces, 3 and 3. There's another 3 down in the central part of the project. I'll have them prepare a cross-section so we can see how this will.
I
So,
just wanna
thank-
see the roadway because it might be a tight roadway too, because I realize there's no off-site parking, there's no roadway parking, so.
That's correct. And
And I-
Commissioner, you're correct. A typical street would be around 32 feet of paving
Right.
rather than 24.
And I remember the problem Prescott had with the boulders where they ended up making the private roads one way, and that can't happen with this one.
Right, that's correct. Thank you.
That-
We'll
that-
prepare a
I
cross-section for you.
anticipate the fire department will comment also.
Yes, they were present at the feasibility and technical review meetings, and they have been routed the project for final comment for your future report.
I have heartburn about the parking. I have to say, 16 feet width is just not, in my eyes, acceptable. Usually they're 20 feet wide. Now, is the driveway itself 20 feet long? Is it, I don't see where it's,
I'll have to verify if it's, I'm looking, excuse me, Commissioner Bacon, if it's 16 feet wide, it looks to be 20 feet long, because they're
Okay.
longer than they are wide.
okay,
But we'll have those dimensions added to that.
thank you.
Yes.
My concern is that, you're going to have a Super Bowl weekend, you're just going to have a few family members over. I echo the concerns of my fellow commissioner here, that they could use it for storage. These are probably going to be rental, they're not going to be sold, because there's no plat involved here, correct?
And that's correct. This would be a condominium plat.
Oh, it'd be a condominium?
I don't see any parcel lines on it at this time. If
Okay,
they,
so it says duplex apartments, so I'm thinking that, somebody comes and starts parking on the street, they're having guests, who do they complain to but the city? You're going to come to your neighbor and tell them, people don't want to go to their neighbor any longer. They call the city. And so what happens there? I just have a concern for the parking.
You know, Commissioner Bacon, if we look at the site plan, it looks like there are opportunities for additional guest parking spaces.
Yeah, I could see some right there in the corner. Also, what would be the problem with requiring them to pour the full width of the garage as far as concrete? So the driveway was the full width of the garage.
Right,
16 feet of concrete to park two cars on, pretty tight.
Yeah, I think a typical garage door is 16 feet, so it's almost the same width as the garage door.
Right, but for
Two
parking,
tenders,
I'm
two
sorry,
tenders.
for parking purposes, for our own projects in my business, we always pour the concrete the width of the garage. Makes it easier for people to step out of the doors.
Okay.
Not gonna add a significant cost to this project.
No, sir, and Chair, it looks like there's some room for
And that might be
expansion on
some
the
way
site
to
plan.
help provide a little comfort here.
Well, if you look between units like 1A, 1B, and 2A and 2B, there's room in there if we needed to squeeze in some guest parking throughout.
There's several places, and
And-
that's pretty cheap stuff.
And I think we were maybe balancing, trying to keep it as green as we can, but if, for logistical and real life purposes, we may need to add a few more guest parking spots.
Yeah, because it's a nice looking development, but the parking is pretty minimal.
Certainly, and I don't believe the high school would like us parking in that big lot across the street.
What is the maximum coverage, lot coverage, and what are they providing?
For the maximum lot coverage, I believe
Yes.
in MR1 is 40%. They're requesting to have upwards of 40%. The actual lot coverage of these units, I'm not certain. It doesn't appear
I
to
see
be
here,
40%.
I just found it. I think it says 24%, 40% maximum MR1.
I'm looking for it.
Right there. Lot coverage, 24%. It's, right there.
Oh, there it is. Thank you. I kept looking at existing and proposed at the top, and they were the same number. It says 40 and 40, but I think it's a bit redundant since they're doing straight zoning anyways. We'll take that off.
And I don't have the code in front of me, so lot coverage only includes the roofed area, correct?
It would be anything covered, any
Okay,
structures.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody have any other comments or questions?
Just what I think is a typo, is this actually 0.25 miles east of the southeast corner of East Center Street rather than west?
It should be east.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Is the developer providing any perimeter privacy walls along the east and west side?
Yes, they are.
6-foot pins.
If I may, for the record, what your name?
Jared Clatterbuck, the
Thank you.
property owner.
What? Thank you.
And then as far as the parking, widening, that was not an issue. To do either 3 parking spots in front of each garage, I mean, that's 10 more feet, like you said, minimal cost for that. And it actually makes sense on those top units and stuff, to get more parking for family, friends, and Super Bowl.
Right. Thank you.
Jason, I have another request. Would it be possible to have 11 by 17s, of like just this on our study sessions that you have up there now? So
Absolutely.
we could see what's being done?
Certainly, we can print them out, 11 by 17.
Hey, I'm not sure. Fellow commissioners, would you like to see that, or is it just?
Make it bigger, please.
Yeah,
Yes.
anything that would be bigger would be helpful.
Oh, I apologize. They were printed in 11 by 17. I'm not certain how the packets were picked up or delivered, so we can make sure to note that.
8.5 by
8 11 by 11? Okay, thank you.
So, one comment on all of this is just a personal comment from me. This kind of stuff right here is very helpful for us. I know over the years that I've been here, there's been lots of times when we sort of look like deer in the headlights when we got all this information right at the time we're supposed to vote on it, and I can't tell you how much appreciated this is.
Thank you, Chair. We really want you to have the time to make good decisions and digest all this information,
You know,
especially when we
these-
have unique projects or big projects.
These little tweaks that we're asking for, this is just gravy on top of the sauce here. This is very nice, thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Any concerns about any of the projects that we've looked at tonight? Okey-doke. I'm gonna move forward then, Jason, unless you have anything else that you would like to make comments on.
Thank you, Chair. I had one clarification for you on your agenda. It was asked if I'm still acting Development Services Director. I'm not. I'm just Development Services Director. Even though it says acting on there, I'm not going anywhere.
We are grateful to have you on board. Thank you
It,
so
it
much.
came up earlier from one of the commissioners. I just wanted to clarify that I'm not leaving.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
To all of us.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Get to vote on
Okay.
your salary, though.
So I'm gonna go to item 9.
Careful what you ask for.
Yeah. I'm going to go to item 9, public comments. This is a call to the public as an opportunity for the public to address the commission on any issue within the jurisdiction of the commission that is not on the agenda. Public comment is encouraged. Individuals are limited to speak for 3 minutes. The total time for the call to public may be up to 30 minutes per meeting. Commission action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, scheduling the matter for further consideration, and a decision at a later date, or responding to criticism. So if anybody has any public comments that is not on tonight's agenda, please step up to the podium and state your name and let us have it. I see everybody's happy with us, so we're going to close that part. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
So moved.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, gentlemen.
painless.
I made it.
Second.
I made the motion.
First, second.
Thank you, gentlemen.
It was a good night.
This is really gonna come in handy to do it this way. It's gonna make it 3 times as easy.
Oh, this is awesome.
Thank you, Mitchell.
Certainly, this is undoubtedly the way to do it with these study sessions ahead of
This
time.
is so much better.
Yeah,
I like it, yes, sir.
rather than having to go through every swing set and everything else on the day we do it. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
I'll see you March 20th, I think, right?
is that what
Yeah.
it's special?